What's happening, everybody? Willie here at the Great Outdoors. It's Christmas time. It's the giving season. And I'm going to tell you what is better in this world than receiving? Well, some people say giving, but I've got to say that giving and receiving are kind of both right in that same, it's just it's hard to weigh it out. Which is better, giving or receiving? They say it's better to give than receive. But doggone it, when you receive, you can't help but think to yourself, wow, this is cool. What is it? Well, in this aspect, I kind of know what's there. That's right. Me and Dan the man, Dan Selvig, we're interchanging things again. Where's my knife? And it's just how we are. There's things that I'll find here in Virginia that would really be better off in Minnesota. And there's things that he'll find there that will work in Minnesota, but really I like using here. And Dan knows it, I know it, we know it. We're knowers. We know each other. There was no hidden anything behind that. I'm going to open this up here. Now, according to Dan, this was sold to him by another gentleman. And Dan just hadn't got around to it yet. And, well, you know me. I'm a get around to kind of guy. A lot of bubble wrap in here, Dan. We know I love bubble wrap. It is a beautiful 40th anniversary Century 100B. And this, I'm going to tell you, is pretty. But not only is it pretty, it's pretty froze up. She's locked up tight. That's right. Man, it is gorgeous, Dan. Daggone it. Now, one thing that I will say is that we know that the 45th anniversary, I didn't realize that I cut my head off again. Let me change that because I get so tired of thinking that I'm in frame, and then when I hit record, all of a sudden I'm not in frame anymore. What's up with that thing? Sony? Come on. If it's in frame before I hit record, it should be in frame when I do hit record. Quit making it complicated. This, Dan bought this from a gentleman. It froze up. It hasn't moved in quite some time. And man, it's really hard to believe that this is not, but if it hasn't been used and it looks this new and no one's ever done anything with it, it makes all the sense in the world as to why it's frozen up. It's what we like to call in the fishing reel world, grease locked. Meaning the old grease has become more like Loctite than grease. And it's not really allowing for lubrication, it's more preserving. The button will not push, and I'm not going to force it because we know when we force it what happens. We turn gears into flat plates, just plates with bumps, little tiny bumps, and that's it. So we are going to take this guy apart, as beautiful as this thing is. One of the things I would like to bring back around is the 45th anniversary. If you remember, we had one of those that we used for parts that we also got from Dan to try to get the Duke, we called it, the 100B that I rescued from a display case in Lightfoot in a tackle shop. Well, they're made in China. Found out the hard way that the Chinese parts, they're not machined the same. Well, the 40th anniversary is made in the USA. That's right there in good old Minnesota. I'm not kidding. I would not lie about that today. Anyway, let's get this thing torn apart, get her cleaned up, and hope that it's got gears that are so quiet that a librarian wouldn't even hear you in the library going like this. And they have trained ears. Does anybody go to the library anymore? Is there such thing as a library anymore? We're going to go high this time. I don't usually take that thing up this high, but we're going high this time and try to get a little bit. Also have a new bigger bowl. Harbor Freight, $3.99. Got me a bigger bowl. You want to see how much difference? Because I found out that my reels were kind of overwhelming the little bowls. But got us a nice big magnetic bowl there. Set that guy right there. Let's get us out a Phillips head screwdriver, because this one does have the Phillips head screws when you get up into this time frame. Well, I'll tell you what, let's first take this cap off. Ooh, look at that. Now when you get up into this time frame, you also get a plastic retrieval pin. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but I'm pretty sure that's all solid plastic right there. And here's the funny thing. No, there's been line on it. Okay, so there's been some line on it. It actually got used, because there's a little scar right there where the line has gone across. So it has had some line on it at one time. Somebody must have at least gave it a test run. Also looks like they've had it apart, because there's a mark right there where a flathead screwdriver has pried over on it. So it's been apart at one time. Hopefully we're going to find that there is no issue other than it just being grease locked. Not too bad. Goodness gracious, what a magnet. Get that out of there. Well, came off really easy. I always take a good look at these and make sure that, okay, it's coming off easy. Always make sure these come off easy, because if they don't, you could have a terrible, your day could be bad if you break one of them. Yeah, the grease is just a little bit hard. We'll set those two down right there. Let's use the smaller bowl for our friends, the plastic parts. That is just stuck. Now this also has a plastic center. We're going to have to be extremely careful. I will probably not take that out, because the older versions have a metal center of some sort. It can be brass or it can be a cast aluminum center, and that is plastic. And as we know from the 45th anniversary, that will break off. Oh, I'm not kidding. It will break off. I'm not kidding. No, I'm not. Let's see, how am I going to get that out of there? Doesn't want to move. So let's get some other parts. I might be able to come in from the inside of the reel and pry it up just a little bit. But let's go ahead and get this. Side plate off here. I had 2 cups of coffee today, and I'm not joking. I am shaking. Man, am I shaking. I'm just shaking. That's what I'm doing. I'm like shaking like a chihuahua sitting on an iceberg. I'm shaking bad. Okay, it looks like our gears are in pretty good shape. They're all sharp and toothy like they're supposed to be, as opposed to rounded off. Those look really good. Let's get this other plate here. Set that down right there. Not a lot of cleaning to be done, other than getting that gear out, because this right here, see, I got it moving, but that right there is where it is stuck. It is just thick old grease. Let's get our button off. Plastic part goes in this bowl here. Our drag is moving pretty easily, but I'm going to go ahead and take it out anyway. Now on this drag, there is a C-clip. I'm going to try to point to it. There's a C-clip right there that has to come out. So when you take this whole mechanism apart, that C-clip's got to come off before that'll come out of there. That C-clip's got to come off. So just a little bit different beast. Now what I'm wondering is, on this one, yeah, it looks like it will. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, on this version, your spring and your shaft will actually pass through the groove of the reel of the housing, where the 45th anniversary wouldn't do that, if I recall. If I remember that correctly. But all that is really thick grease. That's all it is. Now, here it is. That is plastic, people. You have to be careful with that. I don't even know if I want to make the attempt. Try to take all that apart, because all this is moving freely. So, I may not want to take those off, simply because I do not want to break that plastic centerpiece. Because even though this is a 45th anniversary, this thing's got it's got some age on it. I'm not exactly sure when was their 45th anniversary. I'll have to look into that. Maybe we can put that up at the top somewhere over here. But we definitely have to wash it. I'll have to run some, I got some, what do you call them? Pipe cleaner type things that I can run through here and clean that grease out and get this thing apart. Because I seriously, this is not a problem. This is perfectly fine. So I'm going to leave that drag on there, leave it as is, and just clean this up good. Clean this shaft up good, because that's a problem. That grease is very thick and hard. And let's get her cleaned up and get her put back together again. This could be a short video, but very cool though regardless. I think one of the important things to look at here is the type of grease that you use in these things. This spring and gear they won't even move. The spring, I'm hoping you can see it, will barely slide down. I'm trying to push it, and I can barely push that gear down, and it's so gooed up that it actually gets stuck. And it's supposed to come back up and fill that gap that's right there, and it is just absolutely stuck as it can be. Okay, what I did was, I did not want to try to pry that little plastic bushing off the bottom. So I took it to the sink, took a toothbrush and some Dawn dishwashing detergent, and started cleaning all the old grease off of it. Hold on, let the dump truck go by. So once I got all the surface cleaned, I brought it in here and I was able to move this gear up and down, as you see there. Put some oil on the top of it and just let the oil run down the shaft, and then started moving this gear up and down on the spring, which has completely released it now, and we should be okay. Anyway, now we're going to move on to the crank gear. Take that off. Let's just take this, put it over here, scoop these screws over here, and we're going to take that nut off right there and make sure we pay attention if we got any washers or anything in there. Let's take the crank off. Okay, we have no washers, no washers. So it is just crank right across the shaft itself, right to the base of the outside plate. And now we got to get this out. Oh, well, it's coming out. It's just incredibly stiff. Do we have a washer? No, I don't see one. And no, I don't see one. This is the thing that I find the most baffling about the Johnson's model reels, is sometimes there's a washer and there's nothing there. It's just green. In between I guess you want to call this the crank gear itself and shaft, between that and the body, the housing, and sometimes there just isn't. And it just is funny to me that, I mean, I don't know if their machining was off or if it's the make of reel. I haven't figured that out just yet. That's one of those things I want to look into. But anyway, that makes it easy to clean this part up because I don't have to worry about losing anything. So let's go clean these up now. All right, we are almost completely cleaned up. I got to get some grease off of the center bushings for the drag. But one of the things I want to show you when you're cleaning up these old reels, the problem that you will have with some of these older Johnson reels, just now when I brought it back in here to dry it off, all I used was this paper towel right here just to get the water off of it, just to dab the water off. When I Went around to the front here to just take the water, to get the water off the reel. The writing that goes around here that tells you right or left, retrieve or whatever, it just came right off. I mean, it just came off. And you can barely see it. And all that I used was just a paper towel, and it just wiped right off. So you have to be careful with these older reels. Me, of course, we know that I use these things. So unfortunately, if I were collecting or holding on to these things and displaying them, you know, when you go to dry this stuff off, that it just comes off. And all I cleaned, I did not clean the outside edge with no kind of brush or anything like that. It just wiped it and it came right off. And it's just a gold stamped writing that's, you know, going to tell you left or right retrieve. But regardless, it comes off, just like you see how the numbers are for your drag here. That will come off. So I was these, however, are raised. They're raised and they're painted. So I was very careful wiping that, but this one, unfortunately, this is not raised. It's just a stamp like a typewriter would go and just put it right on there, and it just came off. But hey, it looks nice and black, so it looks really good. But those are the things you got to be careful with. Just saying, just wanted to let you know, you got to be careful if you do intend on displaying these things or having people look at them and that kind of thing. That kind of stuff can happen right there, and that's all I did was just wipe it off, and it came right off with it. Enough of that nonsense. Let's clean up the rest of this stuff. So I got grease on my little cotter pin here, my hairpin. Let's get that off there. Also, this one was in such good shape, I didn't really have to put any of this underwater in any way, shape, or form. That's a little dirty though. I need to get that out of there. Because you got to be careful with these stickers and decals and stuff, because that will as well come off. So I'm going to wipe the inside out. Just get the dust and what dirt was in there out. But I'm not wiping down that sticker at all. Now, considering this is a plastic centerpiece, again, when I use the brush to go through there, like the barrel brush, this is plastic. I only use that nylon brush to go through there because that is plastic. You don't want to leave any scars inside. When you're dealing with the metal ones, you can use the brass. If you use a brass brush, the brass will not dig into the metal. You don't want to use the steel because it will dig in and leave scars inside of that. You don't want that. You want it to move smoothly. That's the thing, the key. All right, now let's go back. Let's see, do I got grease? Yeah, I got grease on there. Let's get that off there. Another thing that lets me know this thing was very little used is that all of these holes that you see like this, they have that D shape. And these are all perfectly shaped. There's no dig-ins, no spots where they've, you know, caught a monster carp or something and messed up those holes in the steel. Now me, I might catch a monster carp or something on it. There was evidently no grease on this whatsoever, and you can see from where the spring and the pin were pushing on it. Just kind of take your thumbnail and just get that hard spot off of it. And there you go. And we'll put some grease on it when we put it back together again. Okay, now this is our gear, and I've already got it oiled up pretty darn good. Wow, is that, look people, look. Are we seeing that? It's moving. Uncrazy believable. No, we did not go with grease this time. I went with just some oil and that plastic. That's all I'm going to go with. You're always going to want to put a little grease between that body right there of that button and that pin, because that takes a whole lot of abuse. And for those of you who wonder, this is Super Lube. I use this stuff. I get it from Harbor Freight. I find it to be good grease. It doesn't seem to get all thick and nasty on me. And I used it in every single one well, I say every single one. When I first started doing this, I didn't use it, but I do now because I like it. And as we know, there was no bushing of any kind. There, look at that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the way that should be. Crank arm goes back on. Nut goes back on. And just snug it down a little bit. There we go. Look at that. Ooh, that's scary how easy that turns right there. We need to get our side plate. Our side plate is going to go on the left hand side because this is going to remain a, get on there, for me, right hand retrieve. Now we got to get a little grease out of here if I can get some. This tube is running low. Something else, this grease ain't cheap. I ain't kidding. It's like $8.99 a tube, even though it's Harbor Freight. So prepare yourselves. It is not cheap grease. Put this guy back in here like such. Fits like a glove. Going to put our screws back in. There's one and two. Then this little guy goes on first. This little guy goes on second. Put our spool on. I wiped the center section of the spool out, so got that grease off of there. Our spool goes in there like that. Then our little center pin that I've wiped the grease off of goes on like so. Mr. Hairpin. And now you push up on your retrieval button down there, or the release pin, release button, whatever you want to call it. Get your nut to go back on there, and I got a little oil down in here, so I'll put a little oil right there, and I will screw that back on as such. The reason you push up on the button is so you can fully seat that nut. And while you're keeping that button pushed in, you can tighten down on that nut right there, so that way when you release it, it goes back down flat and flush. And you see that? It's making that pin work. That's what you want to see. And let's keep doing that for just a little bit, working all that grease in. She's doing everything she's supposed to be doing. Then the finishing touch is this beautiful green cap. Push your button, put your pin in. Some reels you have to do that, some you don't. And there you go. A perfectly functioning 40th anniversary Johnson Century 100B that was locked up completely. Look at that. It was locked completely up. You saw it. I showed you. So here we are back at that point again. The point I love. One of the points that I absolutely... Let me get my paper towel. That I absolutely 100% love is the wipe down. Wipe it down. Get all the fingerprints and the grease and the oil off the outside edge. And I'm going to tell you, I've said this before, there's nothing like this. Now to get out to the water with it and catch a fish would be awesome. But this morning it was 37 degrees here. Yes, it's that time of the year. It's the time of the year where if you're going to catch fish, you really need to be up in the mountains somewhere standing in a river catching trout. Or any of you people that live out further where you can ice fish or catch fish that will bite all year round no matter what the temperature of the water is. For me, unfortunately, in the area to which I live, I don't really have that benefit, but there we go. Drag's working great. Had some oil in that. Buttons pushing. We're retrieving, and look at that. We were completely locked up. That's awesome. Absolutely the coolest thing in the world. Dan, once again, I appreciate it. I'm still kind of sad about the letters not being on the side, but that's happening. It's just, it is what it is. You're dealing with things that are pretty darn old. But I'm going to look up this again, and I think maybe by this time I already have, to see just when the 40th anniversary actually was. What year was the 40th anniversary of the Johnson Century? I don't know. You would think I would. As much of these things as I mess with, you would think I'd know when their birthdays are. You'd think I'd know employee names. But I don't. So, anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. That is bringing back another one from the dead. Even though this was way too pretty to say it was dead. It's back and it's ready to go. We're going to have fun with this one. Thank you guys for watching. I truly appreciate every one of you. We'll see you on the next one. Whatever the next one may be. Maybe fishing with a 40th anniversary Johnson Century 100B. I said every bit of that right. Didn't mess up one time. First take on